Hello, you're watching Eye on Africa. I'm James Creedon. These are our headlines this evening. Diplomatic tensions continue between Morocco and Spain after a mass influx of migrants to Ceuta. That's a Spanish enclave in Morocco. The majority of some 8,000 migrants have now been returned to the Moroccan side of the border. We'll bring you the latest on that. And patients who are critically ill with COVID-19 are more likely to pass away from the illness in Africa than any other part of the world. That's according to a study in a medical journal, The Lancet. We'll explain why that's the case a little bit later on. And we'll bring you a report on water scarcity in Bangui, the capital of Central African Republic. The population of the city has been multiplied by 15 since the 1970s, with shortages in water supply being one of the worst consequences of that. Thanks for watching. Now we start in Ceuta. At least 6,600 of the more than 8,000 migrants who swam or jumped over border fences into one of Spain's North African enclaves this week have been sent back over the border to Morocco. That's according to Spanish authorities this Friday. A diplomatic dispute led to what Spanish authorities say was a willfully lax attitude on the part of the Moroccan authorities at the border. That crisis rumbled on all week, with many young Moroccans caught in a no man's land for days. One crisis helpline for worried family members registered over 4,000 calls from loved ones concerned about the whereabouts and fate of those who had crossed into Ceuta. With all the latest on that crisis, here's France 24's Marius Sofus.
No new arrivals in the Spanish enclave of Ceuta for the second day in a row, as Moroccan authorities step up vigilance on their side of the border, while more than 6,600 migrants have been sent back to their country of residence out of the more than 8,000 that arrived. Some migrants expressed anger at the Moroccan government, suggesting that they were effectively encouraged to make the crossing when Morocco appeared to loosen its border controls on Monday, a move widely seen as retaliation for Spain's hosting of a Western Sahara independence leader considered a terrorist by Rabat.
يعني المغرب عنده الربح يصيفطنا حنايا ينقي بنادم. المغرب دابا حنا هما فئران التجارب المغرب. حنا بحال شي فار كيجربوا فينا ديك الشيء ديالهم.
According to migrants that made the dangerous crossing into Spain, they came seeking employment and a more secure future.
We have boys have lots of education, but they don't have a work. That's the basic of all the problems. Work, rights, good life. That's all the people want.
Many residents of Ceuta have responded to their plight with great sympathy, particularly as many of the migrants are unaccompanied minors. Locals have been offering food, clothing and blankets, though for the migrants it's long-term solutions that they seek.
Los chavales están muy confusos, con mucho miedo, sino que quieren preguntar, quieren mucha información, ¿sabe? Pues eso, ¿dónde van a ir? ¿Qué es lo que hay después de esto?
Madrid is required by Spanish law to care for young migrants until their relatives are located or they turn 18. Authorities are deciding where in the Spanish mainland to send more than 200 young migrants who were already in Ceuta before this week, to make room in reception centres for the at least 1,500 minors who've crossed into the enclave since Monday.
Nigeria's Army Chief Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru has died in a plane crash, according to three military sources speaking to Reuters news agency. The Air Force said in a statement that its plane crashed near Kaduna Airport in the northwest of the country and is investigating the immediate cause of that crash. The crash took place about 6 p.m. local time. The Nigerian paper The Nation is reporting that all 12 crew and passengers died in the incident. General Attahiru was appointed army chief by President Muhammadu Buhari in January, with fighting the Boko Haram insurgency a key priority. In recent months saw a spike in suicide bombings and attacks on military formations. We'll bring you more on that story as it comes into us. Now, being on the African continent and falling ill with COVID-19 means you're less likely to emerge unscathed than anywhere else in the world. That's according to a study in The Lancet. Most of the explanation for that is down to a lack of resources to respond to the pandemic. Now, in parallel, the World Health Organization said on Friday that deaths linked to COVID-19 have likely been under-evaluated, with the real figure possibly being 2 to 3 times higher. The Assistant Director General in charge of data for the World Health Organization, Samira Azma, had this to say earlier.
I think we are safe to say on the lower bounds that what we are seeing today, 3.4 million deaths, this number truly would be about 2 to 3 times higher. So I think safely about 6 to 8 million deaths could be an estimate on a cautionary note, with a cautionary note.
France 24's Sam Bradpeace has been digging into that report by medical journal The Lancet, detailing why falling ill with COVID-19 in various parts of Africa leaves patients more vulnerable than elsewhere. Let's take a listen.
These are really quite disturbing findings. They showed that 48% of patients admitted for critical care suffering from COVID died in hospitals in Africa. This is against the 32% global average. So a stark contrast there. This study was an observational survey, really, of 10 different African countries, 64 hospitals in total, some of them here in South Africa. It pointed to HIV and AIDS as a particular risk factor when it came to mortality arising from COVID-19. And that's a particularly worrying sign here in South Africa, where the HIV rate is indeed exceptionally high. Now, while the African continent accounts for just 4% of all global deaths from COVID-19, these findings point to a particular kind of inequality in the global health system. It noted that just half of the patients who died in this survey had actually received the life-saving or potentially life-saving oxygen before their demise.
The EU intends to invest €1 billion to build COVID vaccine manufacturing hubs in Africa. Brussels also intends to donate at least 100 million doses of coronavirus vaccines to low and middle income countries by the end of the year, according to the Commission. Now, those details were announced by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen at a COVID summit in Rome. Other news emerging from that summit: Pfizer-BioNTech announced it would make 2 billion doses available at cost price to poor countries over the next 18 months. And staying on the issue of vaccines, at least 66 million doses were due to be delivered to African countries through the international COVAX sharing scheme. That number was a drop in the ocean compared to the 1.5 billion vaccines administered around the world. But in Kenya, medical teams have been doing their utmost to ensure what supplies they have are not wasted. Shirley Sipon reports.
This medical team has traveled through villages with this cooler. Inside, AstraZeneca doses they brought from their hospital in the nearby town of Siaya.
Some of them do not make it to the hospital because they don't have the transport to the hospital, and some of them are afraid to come to the hospital because they have myths that when they come to the hospital, they'll be forced to be tested first before they get vaccinated.
Among the main concerns of those being vaccinated, not being able to get the second shot.
Naogopea, unajua chanjo kama ni 2 na umepewa 1, ukikosa hiyo ya pili, sasa unajua pengine huenda ukawa ile yenye ulipata ya kwanza haitakuwa na nguvu ya kutosha.
Because Kenya, like many other African countries, is lacking vaccines. The campaign was picking up speed when India, the biggest AstraZeneca exporter, decided to use the African jabs to save its own population hit by a devastating spread of the virus.
If we do not get further vaccines coming into the continent and increase the rate at which we are vaccinating people, we could see a more virulent strain taking hold on the continent, even as we are reducing the rate of vaccination.
Vaccines administered in Africa represent less than 2% of those injected across the world, and that figure keeps shrinking.
To Central African Republic next, and as the dry season is ending and the first thunderstorms are hitting the capital Bangui, a historic power outage left the city without water and electricity for 10 days. But in some neighbourhoods, it hasn't changed anything. The country's drinking water company cannot supply most of the districts in Bangui. Only a handful of residents have access to running water every day. And with more on that issue, here's France 24's Clément Diroma.
At the foot of the hills that overlook the Central African capital, a new but welcome sight. This part of Bangui has never had water, even though 4,000 people live here.
Moi, j'étais là depuis 1980. Ici, c'est vraiment la broussaille. Et il faut aller à peu près dans les villes, les quartiers environnants pour avoir de l'eau.
This is the start of work to create 50 boreholes across Bangui. The water they provide will service more than 10,000 people. The €1 million project has been financed by the European Union, and a Rwandan NGO and an Indian company are heading up the scheme on behalf of the city.
C'est-à-dire la nappe souterraine, elle n'est pas loin, et puis elle est pleine d'eau. Il suffit seulement de les forer pour les joindre.
A few kilometers on, Princia, a student, has to carry this 20-liter container home with her. Water has not flowed in the neighborhood for 5 years.
Au moment de la saison sèche, on quitte ici jusqu'au niveau de la Kwanga. Donc la Kwanga, c'est loin, on est obligé d'y aller à cause de problèmes d'eau.
She goes to the nearest borehole, 500 meters from her house.
Mais ordinairement, le paye à 25 francs. Donc, puisque je suis un peu pressée, j'ai besoin de l'eau, je suis obligée de payer à 50 francs.
If the people of Bangui go to boreholes by the hundreds every day, it is because there's not enough water pumped from the main Central African river, the Ubangi.
Alors, l'eau arrive ici à travers un chenal d'amener.
Eric, the technical director of Sodeka, oversees the company's dilapidated facilities. They were built between 1950 and 1980.
Ce qu'il faut comprendre qu'en 1975, la ville de Bangui n'était pas si étendue que cela. La population de Bangui a explosé. On est autour de à peu près 1,5 million d'habitants. Et donc, il est très difficile de donner de l'eau à tout le monde à toute heure.
Vandalism, insufficient water reserves, lack of electricity to power up the pumps. The last blackout lasted more than 10 days after a rainstorm. New equipment is being installed, but in the meantime, the people of Bangui have to make do with the scarce alternatives available.
Clement Di Rosa there. That's all for this edition. Clement Di Roma, rather. That's all for this edition of Eye in Africa. Thank you for watching and good night.